Hey everyone, welcome back to the Listen and Grow podcast. This is your go-to source for LGBTQ plus news, culture, and stories shaping our world right now. I am your host, Zach Randles-Friedman, and today's episode is so packed. We're talking about a major Supreme Court ruling on conversion therapy, a rising public health concern affecting gay men, global debates on LGBTQ plus rights and free speech, trans visibility, activism, and political support, and even a viral horror movie that turned out just to be an ad. So let's get into it. First, the Supreme Court rules on conversion therapy. We're starting with a major and controversial decision out on the U.S. Supreme Court. An 8-1 ruling, the Supreme Court determined Colorado cannot ban conversion therapy for minors, citing First Amendment protections around free speech and religious expression. The case was brought by a licensed counselor who argued that the state's ban restricted her ability to practice and communicate with clients, and the court agreed. Now, this doesn't mean the court is endorsing conversion therapy, but it does limit how states can regulate it. And that's significant because conversion therapy has been widely condemned by major medical and psychological organizations. Justice Jackson was the lone discerner, highlighting just how divided the issue remains. This ruling could have ripple effects nationwide. It is unbelievable to me that they did not rule against this. Conversion therapy is nothing but a religious tactic to try to turn people from being gay, bisexual, trans to being straight. You cannot change somebody because that's how they were born. So it's ridiculous. I'm so disappointed in the Supreme Court for this. Our next story is the UK health warning, drug resistance against Shigella. This is a serious public health alert from the UK. Health officials are urging gay and bisexual men to get tested after a rise in drug-resistant Shigella infections. In 2025 alone, there were more than 2,500 reported cases, continuing an upward trend. Shigella spreads easily, often during sex or through poor hygiene, and symptoms can look like food poisoning, with diarrhea, fever, stomach cramps. And here's the real concern. A large percent of the cases are now resistant to antibiotics, with many classified as extensively drug-resistant, making treatment increasingly difficult. Health officials are urging good hygiene during and after sex, condom use, and full STI screenings. Awareness here is key. So if you were out there having sex, please make sure to follow these rules because we do not want this to turn into something bigger than it already is. We go to Finland for our next story, where an MP was convicted in a landmark case. Over in Finland, a 7-year legal battle has finally reached a conclusion. A sitting MP was convicted for describing homosexuality as a development disorder. The country's Supreme Court ruled that her statements met the threshold for enticement against a minority group. What makes this case so significant? She had previously been acquitted twice before the case was escalated. The final ruling included a conviction, a fine, and removal of statements. Supporters call it censorship. Critics call it accountability. In this debate, it's not going anywhere. Now we go for Elliot Page and trans Shakespeare. Let's shift into something more powerful. Elliot Page is supporting a trans-led Shakespeare production featuring an entirely trans and non-binary cast. The performance will debut around London's Trans Pride and streamed globally. This is about more than representation. It's about reclaiming space and storytelling and reminding audiences that these narratives have always existed. And today, it is trans visibility. Across the U.S., we're seeing a surge in trans visibility and activism. Thousands gathered in D.C. for one of the largest Trans Day visibility rallies ever. At the same time, nationwide protests drew millions this past Saturday for No King's Day, showing just how energized communities are right now. So happy Trans Visibility Day to all of our trans brothers and sisters. Next, New York Mayor reaffirms trans support. In New York, leadership is making their stance clear. The mayor of New York publicly reaffirmed his support for trans community during Trans Day of Visibility. In a post, emphasized that trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people have always existed across cultures and throughout history. And then he said something that really resonated. Your existence is not up for debate. Your lives are not a political issue. He also reaffirmed a commitment to building a city where trans people can live openly, safely, and with joy. And honestly, in today's climate, statements like this really matter. I love the mayor of New York for saying that. He is such a supporter of the LGBTQ plus community. Next, 85% of Americans support trans rights. Now, there's something that might surprise you. A new national survey found that 85% of Americans support equal rights and protections for transgender people. And that is a strong majority. But it comes at the same time as an increase in legislation targeting trans communities across the country. So we're seeing a clear disconnect. Public opinion moving forward, policy not always keeping up. And that tension is shaping the current moment. Next, Scotland and the future of HIV. Some hopeful news coming out of Scotland. Experts say the country is in a strong position to become the first in the world to eliminate new HIV cases. But this is important. They're warning that urgent action is needed to hit the goal by 2030. That is what progress looks like. Not just treatment, but prevention, policy, and long-term commitment. That is so amazing. Our next story, the horror film that was actually an ad. Now for something a little lighter, a viral video had people convinced they were watching a horror film. Creepy vibes, strange phone calls, lights flickering, and then it turns out to be a Verizon commercial directed by filmmaker Nia DaCosta. And honestly, it's brilliant because it shows how buried the line between content and advertising has become. And you think you're watching a story, and then you realize you're watching an ad the whole time. And Connor Story was the star of that ad. I love this next story. Viral protest moment. A moment gone viral for all the right reasons. At a No Kings protest, a YouTuber named Nate Friedman tried to challenge protesters with gotcha questions. But one woman completely flipped the script. Listen to this.
Seems like there's a lack of diversity here today. That it's mostly people who look like you and I, and I just
It is not for black people, for people of color to get out on the street. They're at risk when they do that. If anybody's going to get arrested here, it's going to be a black person. It is not safe for them, and they don't need to participate. We need to walk in their name.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. Okay. What do you think about voter ID? Do you think it's racist?
It's 100% a tactic to control the population and prevent people from voting, so that the only votes so that the gerrymandering can work, so that white voters can vote in white Christian males.
Have you been voting blue most of your life?
I voted blue in the womb.
When she was questioned about diversity, her response shut him down instantly. And it's a reminder, sometimes the most powerful voices aren't on stages or in headlines, they're just standing on the ground. And maybe this moment, that has gone completely viral, will make that right-wing YouTuber think about it before he does this again. And that's what we have right now, progress and pushback, visibility and resistance, all happening at the same time. But one thing is clear, the conversation isn't slowing down, and neither is this community. Come back tomorrow for more LGBTQ plus news. And if this resonated with you, please share it with a few people and be sure to make a comment. Thanks for joining.